Welcome to the Love Holistic Living podcast, your roadmap to heal and align mind, body, and soul and become intuitive through food, pleasure, and spirituality with your host and Italian friend, Sara Garofalo. Hello, and welcome back to another episode with your Italian friend and spiritual healer, Sara, with Love Holistic Living. Today, we're going to be talking about something that is an awesome procedure for anybody that wants to better themselves. And I'm here with a master's degree in marriage and family therapy and a doctoral degree in religious education, Refaela Gould. And she's also specialized in attachment theory. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be
Awesome. I'm so excited because you are a marriage and family therapist, right? And we also have worked together. I have to, say that to the audience because I admire you so much in what you do with your own clients, and then also the courage you've had to, place your trust in us, Spirit and I. So,
Yeah, that was life-changing for me, my work with you. And actually was a big part of how I had been launching this for quite some time, but it really happened when we finished our contract. It really started launching hard. So I think that was a big contributor.
I love it. I enjoyed our journey so much. Can't wait for maybe another one. But at the same time, I want to focus on you and what you provide. You explained it to me, but we're going to talk about the stellate ganglion treatment, right? Would you call it a treatment?
Stellate Ganglion Block.
Oh, block. Okay. Would
Yes.
you say it's a treatment or no?
Yes, it's definitely a treatment. It's a procedure.
It's a procedure. Okay. So let's backtrack because that's a procedure. Okay. And you mentioned it to me and you're like, okay, this is amazing. Right. I help people, we're gonna get into it, but I want you to start introducing yourself and also hinting on this treatment that we'll explain in this episode.
Absolutely, sure. And so what I specialize in attachment work with people. So I help people that have avoidant attachment styles, fearful avoidant and dismissive avoidant, and then people who are anxiously attached. And a lot of times this comes from trauma in their
Mhm.
past. A lot of times it's a mother wound or a father wound, as you well know. And so what my work focuses on is helping people to work through their trauma through identity shifting and through neurological regulation
Mm,
and learning to self-soothe and things like that. So that's my focus. I only work with women,
mm,
though I will help men get the stellate. I do a concierge service, which we'll talk about later. But generally, I just work with women. And my main focus is women leaving toxic relationships, leaving
yeah,
narcissists, leaving dismissive avoidance where that's become really dysfunctional,
yeah.
just relationships like that.
Awesome. So for the audience, we're all into the attachment styles. Could you explain briefly, like you just mentioned them, but a little bit like a sentence of each so everybody understands where they are?
Yes, absolutely. So, an anxiously attached person, and sometimes they are called the preoccupied anxious, are the people that have an abandonment wound, and they're very terrified about being abandoned. So, when they're in a relationship, they'll might always be worried you're cheating, or you're not home on time, or you're going to leave them. And if you don't reach out to them for a few hours, they're scared and they're texting you, and they're just anxiously like clutching on for dear life,
Mm-hmm.
because they have that abandonment wound with something in their past. Maybe one of their primary caregivers wasn't there for them, pretty
Yeah.
consistently wasn't there. And so they're always so afraid of being abandoned. So that's the anxiously attached person. And then you have two types of avoidance. You have the dismissive avoidant, and then you have the fearful avoidant. So the fearful avoidant is a bit of a mix of this anxiously attached person and this dismissive avoidant. And you put them together, and we can call that disorganized attachment, where they really want connection, but they're super fearful of connection and fearful of not having connection. So they vacillate back and forth. They can be very confusing people,
Mm,
but they do seek connection. And then you have the dismissive avoidant. And this is the person that can have some of those narcissistic traits, not all the time. There's a spectrum for all of
yeah.
these attachment styles, But at the end of that, there can be some narcissistic traits that a lot of them will carry, because that's a severe abandonment wound where one of their primary caregivers negated their feelings during those formative years, and they were hyper independent when they were far too young. So their nervous system seizes up when they feel intimacy and vulnerability and closeness,
Mm,
because that was going, because literally they were surviving as children by suppressing their emotions. Because a little child's brain isn't like an adult's brain. The little child thinks they won't have a roof over their head or food in their mouth or a place to sleep if their parents can't make it in life. So they homogenize and harmonize the situation by suppressing their emotions to not produce conflict. And then any sort of conflict or closeness triggers them as adults. And they're very dismissive, and that makes them very self absorbed. And that produces those narcissistic traits. Not that they're narcissists, but that they have narcissistic traits. They'll want connection. And the minute they start getting it, it's like, bye. And that's really painful. So a lot of times we call them DAs, dismissive avoidant with an anxiously attached, and oh my goodness, it's such a one's running, one's chasing, it's cat and mouse. And then sometimes you'll get a fearful avoidant with a dismissive avoidant, and those relationships can go on for years because
mm,
the fearful avoidant is avoidant enough that it doesn't completely always trigger the DA, but the
yeah.
DA is, oh my goodness, that those relationships can go on forever. And I
Oh
can
my
see
God. Oh, this is so interesting. And you literally mentioned the nervous system quite a bit, right? So let's get into that for people because between me and you, I work, in a different way. You work with these people, but like there's always the nervous system regulation in there, right? We sometimes people say, "Hey, I have this pattern in my life and I can't stop it." I chase the hot and cold. And I want it to stop, but it's about the nervous system, right? So, how can you explain what's happening at the nervous system?
Very, yes, absolutely. And a lot of people that are stuck in those hot and cold relationships can understand about intermittent reinforcement, where literally that person hijacks their brain. Your the avoidant. They know how to get connection. They're very smart, and they know if they have enough contact with you, they give you enough, your brain will depend on the dopamine, and then they pull back, and then you're chasing them to get it again. And so they know how to do that for their own survival so that they're not alone on this planet. They do
Mm,
that. Oh my, and they have a revolving door of people that they're doing this with. It's upsetting for so many people, and that's basically most of the work I do is people that are in this, and it is their nervous system. It is their brain pharmacy that's been broken into, and someone manipulated it. And now what would they develop is what's called a trauma bond, and that's where the problem and the solution are the same thing, and you're bonded to that over and over and over and over. And that's the rumination and all that. And that's your nervous system seeking that dopamine. And a dysfunctional nervous system can ruin your entire life. It's the most important thing physically to do. And I have done 3 stellates myself, and I'll talk more about that. But that has really helped me with the work you and I did.
yeah.
I was able to more calmly receive what you were telling me, and not think of 100 reasons why that was, because we will always pick a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven, because the brain goes into patterns, as you so well know and taught me at a deeper
Mhm.
level. So the nervous system is in your formative years. When you're a little child, you are developing your attachment style, and your parents or primary caregivers are the ones that teach you how to survive on this planet. And that gets
Yeah.
baked in, and that becomes patterns that you regurgitate and replicate throughout your life. So your nervous system consists of your parasympathetic and your sympathetic. So your parasympathetic is fight, flight, fright, freeze, and fawn. And your parasympathetic is rest and digest, and that's controlled by your vagus nerve.
Mm,
So the stellate ganglion is the part that supplies the brain with all the stress chemicals.
okay.
And then the vagus nerve is what's in charge of your resting and digesting. And so a lot of people that have a lot of anxiety, they will get stomach aches, they will have like issues with constipation or whatever, IBS, any sort of thing like that, because that system is overworking to suppress things. And or the other, it depends what side took over at that young
Yeah.
age. And they sometimes take turns taking over. And what happens is your sympathetic nervous system, people that are just people pleasers to, or they're just totally avoidant, or they're, fawning, freezing, they're angry. The sympathetic nervous system, which is the stellate ganglion block, is a cluster of nerves that supply the brain with these chemicals. It becomes so overactive and so robust and thick that it oversupplies the brain with too much of it all the time. So that's where you might have like the Vietnam vet that hears the car backfire, and he's just, because the brain says, oh, that's that noise. And when you
Mm,
heard that noise, you become terrified. And that's what PTSD is, post-traumatic stress disorder.
yeah.
It's when you're continuing to be oversupplied with there's an appropriate amount of stress. We all need some of it. We need to jump out of the car. If the car is coming at us, we have to run from the lion.
Yeah.
You have to, your kid's getting cut. You've got to grab the glass. So yeah, you have to have that, but you have to have it at the right amount. And so when we're chronically oversupplied with these pain chemicals, I call them, you're in whatever state your attachment style is your proclivity, whether that's anger or fawning or you can't speak up or whatever those things are. It's like you become stuck in that. So the
Mm.
stellate is a mechanical intervention where we reset that.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Oh my God. So much good information. Okay. So pretty much the Stellite Ganglion Block is a treatment to help resupply, right? With,
Reset.
oh, reset.
Hmm.
Um,
Kind of does resupply too, because it changes the amount you're getting. So
got it.
it basically, what he does is Dr. Collins, and we have to talk about Dr. Collins, because not just, I wouldn't do this with just anybody, right? I mean, this
So
is
important.
your brain
Yes.
and your nervous system, and he's an anesthesiologist. He's on my website with all the information. He's the
Yes.
only doctor I work with. And so what, do you want me to tell you what we do, it is?
Absolutely. Yeah. If someone, okay, let's talk about him, but also like if I am someone listening to this episode, right? And I've been with a narcissist or I've suppressed my emotions and or I've gone through a lot of trauma, right? Who are the candidate for this before we get
Okay,
into the
yeah, that's
doctor? Like how
so
can yeah.
they've been using this since the 20s, to be honest.
Whoa.
Dr. Collins does all of this on a whole nother level than the 20s. But so the people who are candidates are people that have binge eating disorders, alcoholism, addiction,
Addiction.
anxiety
Hmm.
disorders, CPTSD, PTSD, shingles, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, long haul COVID. They use
Mm,
it for so many things now. It's something that the VA pays for. Actually, Dr. Collins subsidizes vets.
wow.
Anyway, but yeah, so that's who's a candidate. People who, actually, we can talk toward the end of the show about wanting to get better, but
Yeah.
it will work, right? Because that's the thing. It actually will work. So yeah, those are the people that generally will come in for this.
Awesome. And so you said it originated kind of like in the 20s and then what about yeah, this doctor?
Yes. So they started using it for pain management, and they noticed that people were doing better psychologically. Their marriages were lasting longer. They were happier. And it was almost like, why is that happening? They really found out later that how good for the brain it was, and how much it would
Wow.
regulate the brain. So it was really kind of neat how that works. Um, so now Dr. Collins, I found him. I had learned about the stellate ganglion block, and I was interested in it for myself. But when you hear about the procedure, it just sounds so foreign and bizarre that, just like, who would I trust to do that? And I found him. He's in Boca Raton. He works and he's on my website. But he works at the Marcus Institute of Integrative Health, and that's in Boca Raton. And he's an anesthesiologist and very credentialed. And I'm not exaggerating. In my opinion, I believe from what I've seen and the way he does things, is that he's probably the best in the world at doing
Mm.
this. The very particularly way, the way that he does it is that he does both sides. A lot of places just do one side,
Huh.
unless you pay him a whole bunch of extra. He doesn't do he does the one for the two basically. Um, and he also resets the vagus nerve. He does a full intervention. Both sides of your nervous system become reset.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so tell us about what is happening in there. Because someone
Okay.
is like,
I know.
okay, well, this sounds so much cool, but like, what is actually happening?
And they hear and they go, and then they hear more and they go, okay. So Dr. Collins has a very good bedside manner. So he's a very easy to talk to, intelligent, really
Yeah.
fascinating physician. So just being with him is nice, and I've assisted. I've had the stellate done 3 times. That's called stacking. We'll talk about why. And I have assisted patients going through that, where I provide help for them. So what you do is you go into the OR with him, and he has an assistant. And what he's doing is he's using ultrasound guidance, and that's where you can precisely pinpoint where the needle's going to go that goes into your neck. So that's the part you might lose people. But so basically, what you're doing is he'll have you lay on a table, and he has an ultrasound machine, and he will really get a very good look at the anatomy of your neck. He takes his time to find the
Yeah.
plane, because he wants to reach the stellate, and he wants the needle to go in, because what he'll do is through the needle, he will be injecting a numbing solution similar to what they would use in an epidural. And
Okay.
that, yeah, and that what he does is he bathes the nerve in this. He's avoiding blood vessels. He avoids everything very, very.
Absolutely. Yes.
He bathes the nerve, and what happens is when he sufficiently bathed the nerve, it numbs it completely for at least 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're having that done, the needle goes in, you feel like maybe this warmth, you feel sort of calm, and there's some pressure. I wouldn't say
Mm-hmm.
it's comfortable, but I won't say it's painful. Okay, so it's,
That's your in between. Okay.
yeah, sort of pressure, like it's weird. What do you? But so he puts the needle in. The whole procedure, it takes 15 minutes for him to do your anatomy, or however long, and then the procedure itself's 2 minutes, because he goes in 2 cc's, 2 cc's, 2 cc's. So he's very gentle and careful. He puts it in, and you do start feeling it. And when it calms it down, now there's a little bit of a mystery surrounding the stellate. Like, what exactly does it do in the brain? It is a prohibitor. So does it shrink those vessels a little bit? And some people believe that these little outcroppings of vessels that grew out of necessity to really continue to supply with what the fear is saying, do they drop off? Some people believe they do. This has not been proven scientifically. However, it has been proven that it does reset that nervous system. When your brain even goes 4 hours without being able to supply itself with stress chemicals, your brain likes that. Your brain's like, this is great. That starts taking over. That is the new way to live. It's
Mm.
for your body. Every organ says yes, yes, yes. So during those 4 hours, you have something called Horner syndrome. It's normal, and you need to achieve it to know you got the block, and that's where that side, your eye will droop a little, and you'll kind of feel like that. Maybe that side of it's never happened to me with Dr. Collins, but maybe that side of your throat would be a little bit numb. So he only does one side on one day and the other side on the second day. So it's a
Wow.
procedure. And then what he does is he puts like a sugar solution around the vagus nerve. It's called a vagal hydrodissection. And he does that while he's in there, right there. And he resets that. And then and he's a really cool guy. He's got his own intentions of healing for people. He's just
I
really
love
aware.
it. But you said something so important for the audience, which is what's so healing is to go with everyday supply, right? Your nervous system being so dysregulated to having a break to the system so that it can, I want to call it reset. Yeah, reset, but reprogram, right? To the new way of like, hey, you can have stability, right? You can
Yeah.
find peace, right? We want to do it, I'm such a fan and fond to of meditations, of all the alternative, mechanism, but then at the same time, sometimes we need a little extra, as you know, right? We need that boost to be like, because some people are like getting so frustrated with meditation. I think as you're describing it, I'm like, if we can get a pause, like what I feel in meditation, but it's also very hard for people. Right?
Yeah,
And
and that's kind of why the stellate is so good at it takes the edge off so you can meditate. And in fact,
exactly.
I
Yeah.
think my personal experience, what the first stellate does is akin to what a year of meditation could give you, and you get it in this 15-minute procedure.
Right.
So then you're really getting into the work, because the edge is off. So if I'm talking to you about something super stressful, we're doing a recoding or whatever, I can go there without getting as upset if I as I would, because my body isn't over flooded with that many chemicals, just enough to feel this real thing with you, and then we can go in. So, um,
So would you say, before, would you say that it helps for people to help them with reaction, right? Some people are like, I'm reacting before, I'm I'm overreactive. And what you're explaining right now is like it helps to take the edge off so that you're not going in trauma response right away.
right. You're not having this that you're people go out of people pleasing because people pleasing is a stress response.
Mhm.
I've got to keep everybody like this for me to be safe. And so people pleasers stop pleasing people. Though it's interesting, but absolutely, because when you have it done and your brain feels calm, that's a new sensation for most people. They haven't felt calm in 30 years. They don't know what
Exactly.
calm is. So they get calm, and then you're like, oh, because that's what meditation is, right? Feel what it
Yeah.
feels like to be calm in meditation so you can recognize quicker when you're getting triggered. And you can deal with the situation before it gets out of control. Well, the stellate does that, but on steroids, but not really steroids. But yeah, so it takes the brain down all these notches while retaining your humor, your cleverness, they
Wow.
snipers will go in and get it so they can be better snipers because your acuity is better. Not like I was worried, will I lose my personality? Because in my dysfunctional past, I became kind of a funny person. What if I just become this low affect? He's like, no, no, no. It actually, if anything, enhances your personality because you're not doing it as a stress response, but as a learned behavior that you know is pleasant, you know?
I love that. Okay, so for the audience listening, if you have symptoms like PTSD, anxiety, you've been through a lot of traumas, we've already gone through this, but like, and your nervous system is in a hyper mode, right?
Yeah.
That's how you would describe it. The stellate ganglion block is, a treatment you can have, to what I call bend timing, time bend, like so that you can find peace without maybe trying to meditate for like a year, you know?
Yes, 100%, yes, and doing it while I was working with you, because I had one done, and then I had the second one done right before you, and then during you, I had the third one done, which was really powerful, and that's called stacking, and the reason for that, and why I think, like you're saying, you don't have to have a year of meditation, but this actually helps you get into meditation because you can be calm. Is the stacking approach, which was phenomenal for me, was the first one. Your brain is learning, like, oh, calm. Who knew? Wait, this is an option? I didn't even know. So there's that piece. Your brain is plastic in its own way. And in this second stage, so I had the right and the left done. 9 months later or so, maybe a year, I had the second one done.
Mm,
And the second one was the bomb for me. Like I did this and I was night and day from that day on. Like,
yeah.
like it was so good. It was so I really can't explain it. You just feel joy. You actually know how to feel joy without filtering it through when's the other shoe gonna drop. And then a few months later, maybe 6 months later, I did the third, and the third one was bookends to the first one. It was, like,
Right.
kind of really sealing that in, but when I went in for my second one, my third one, after having my second one, he Doctor Collins was like, "You are in completely different vibrational mode. completely different energy. And it was solid, because he's very he knows your energy and he can just feel the difference, and he knows intuitively. He's very intuitive with how
Yeah.
you're did.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. And so, for example, when we were in a program, you were saying you did it. And I remember, you know, that you were at the treatment, room and we were talking. But what you're saying is, since in a program, we do a lot of trauma healing. I call it recoding, subconscious reprogramming. It did help you so that you could stay calm
Very
and
much.
not getting into, the trauma response. And it really helped you so much already in 3 sessions.
Yes.
If you could tell the audience, we're going to go backwards right now, but like, why? And you don't need to tell the full story, but like, why did you feel like you need it? If you could articulate it in a way through, your own story.
I
Why?
sure.
What happened?
So for me, my big thing was feeling responsible for everyone's feelings.
Mm,
And I had quite a bit of fawning. I do not have that now. Part you, part stellate. Fawning was my ultimate response, which really left me resentful of not speaking up, right? So not speaking up. So as much as it can calm you, it can also activate you. So it's like an adaptogen. If you need to be calm, the stellate's going to calm you. If you need to be activated, it's going to activate you because you'll always be working within regulation. And whatever the situation calls for, you can produce it. So for me, I was highly attuned to other people's feelings. I was very energy vampires just loved me because I was there, I was just there for it. And having been a therapist for a lot of years, I'm not going to say messiah complex, but almost like a messiah burden. Like you have to show up and save people. You're always having to do that, or you really care what other people think, right? I was in a group where
mm-hmm.
very judgmental group, and I was always like, "Am I doing this right?" And then through work with you, and also just the stellate itself, I just stopped caring. I just stopped genuinely, organically caring what other people thought, and the freedom of that was well, that's the most probably the most life altering thing any woman can ever approach in her life is to just choose herself. So that took away the edge of I need to fix everybody so I could actually turn inward and realize what needed to be fixed in me.
I love that. So, in what you're saying is that you wanted to get better and then you were ready to look inside. Can you tell us
Mhm.
more about like people need to be ready, right?
Yes, that's the thing about who's not a candidate. Because the stellate will work, it will actually work. You have to want to get better. There are people who can go in and resist it to some degree. Now, in and of itself, it can't be resisted because it's a numbing medication that goes into your nerve
Mhm.
or around your nerve. So to some extent,
Yeah.
you can't manipulate it. But I've heard of people, I've talked and watched their testimonials, and they say, I was fighting it, and it just kind of took me a week to really feel the effects of it. It'll continue to work for 2 weeks, but
But with anything, right? Like don't if you decide to do it,
mhm.
be fully open. I think that's the most important. Energetically, emotionally, and to receive the benefits.
Yes, because a lot of people are they don't know it. They're not aware of this, but they find their worth in their victim status. And getting better requires them to change their story. Or it allows them to change their story. But I've had one person, a couple people actually, they had both suffered with cancer and
Mhm.
they were better. They had healed. But the thing was, when I asked them, if you went to a town where no one knew you, and they didn't know that you had all this tragedy and all these things, and they just knew your hobbies and your preferences and your personality, how would you feel? And this one person was like, I wouldn't even feel like I was anybody because had given her her sense of self, that sickness. So
Wow.
the trauma of the sickness, we weren't going to address that very well if that was her identity and she felt like it was taking her identity away. So
So powerful.
it's really powerful how much so that's part of your identity. We've got to get to where what your identity is. That's so when I work with people with the stellate, because
Mhm.
I do a 90-day thing with them where we prepare for it, we do it, and then we work afterwards. They have to want it. And you really to get better, as you know, you've got to hire the people, you've got to eat the food, you've got to walk the steps, you've got to do this. It was for me, it was like anything that was going to help me, bring it on. I'm here for it because I was at that place. I was there for it. So I say people that do this delete with that attitude, they're going to have the optimal results.
Absolutely, and with everything, you're saying this, I say this to people all the time. You wanna want to change, you want, you know? To change, to get better, to acknowledge your stories, take accountability, and, stop resisting that. But, yes, what you're saying is taking the people through the process of, like, self-discovery or, like, looking at their identity, asking them, "Okay, are you ready to change it?" That's the change,
They
right?
have to let go of the version of themselves that found meaning in the tragedy rather than the tragedy had meaning. Like that's where we have to go. So they
But
have to let go of that version. And what
wow.
does that look like? It'll look different for everybody. But you help me with my own version of whatever, right? To let
Mhm.
go of that version. And we're
Abs
not bringing the past. You kept telling me, I heard the word past, and this is someone from my past. You're like, I heard, and yeah, so it was very powerful. I had you to work with me through this.
yeah,
And that's helpful, to have a person actively engage with your healing and your recovery while you're doing it. I mean, that's the best way to do it.
the best way, yeah. We need help, and some people are not willing to recognize that, right? Like, I was so scared to invest in myself, to help myself, and at first, I wanted to do it all for free, which, I mean, you can, but at some point, like, when you're really serious, we have to get help, and we have to hire people or get procedure, treatments that will help us or go to a retreat, whatever it is. But, I think yeah, it's the healing journey. It's the healing process. And can we speed it up so that it doesn't take 20, 30 years to heal? The 30 years prior?
Yes, this does speed it up, and I think with the work you and I were doing, I think it's really spread it up. I felt like I jumped a timeline
Yes.
being in this other space, and also feeling the empowerment of, like, some people think, "Oh, that sounds so scary, a needle in the neck," and I'm thinking, "This is my victory, I'm on it." You know what I mean? And that was my script of that. Like, I'm gonna suffer and go to Boca Raton and sit by the pool while I because it's a lot of it is relaxing. But it was, yeah, it was a no for me, it was a non-negotiable. The minute I got over the idea that a needle went in the neck, and I was like, well, they've been doing it since the 20s without ultrasound.
Yeah,
So
I mean, how I view this is, do you wanna get better, right? For me, it's like, what do I need to do to get better? I think that's a personality also. I mean, I call myself, I think you are too, a high achiever, but for people who really are serious to find a solution, I mean, take me there. Yes, the needle, but, like, I can get over it, and then we want the results. And if the results are better than our current reality, why not?
absolutely, and it's a tried and true intervention. And the setting is really important. I will say this, there's puppy mills of everything, every version of everything, right? And so there's the same thing with this LA, a quick in and out. They send you off into traffic to drive yourself home. Dr. Collins isn't like that. This is a very sacred procedure for him because he knows he's helping someone shift from the identity of panic to the identity of peace. So he takes that very seriously. He won't do a person and just do one side. I mean, if they did one side and decided not to do the second side, I mean, he wouldn't make them. But his treatment
Oh.
protocol is both sides and the vagus nerve. Um, and not exclusively, but that's his main way. And the setting is important. The doctor is important, I think. I mean, just super important.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
wouldn't go to anyone but him. I'm not paid to say that about him. I trust him. I trust him with myself, my family members, my friends, and other people that I brought through his office. I really like the way he works, and I think when any we're using any healing modality, the healers are as important as the modality. So picking
Oh,
you, having him,
absolutely.
yeah,
Like, you
I
need to
wanted
have
to offer
trust.
of everything.
Mhm.
That's what I got.
Amazing. Yeah, and I'm so pleased, to introduce this to the audience that, um, some people, you may wanna do both. Want it to work with, a healer or a therapist, and then do the procedure or, just do one, and some people don't wanna work on their stories, they just wanna get to, like, "How can you help me help my nervous system?" And I think I wanted to introduce that. It's so valuable to the
Yeah.
audience that is listening. Anything else that you'd like to add?
I guess I would say that for a lot of people that are on a healing journey and they are ascending,
Mm,
it will push that forward. And so all of the things that come with ascension come with that. And so it's nice and it's new. I will say if you really want the stellate and you are a person who would work with you or whatever, like they will go somewhere. So just be ready.
I love that. Just be ready for the journey to take off. Yeah. Awesome. I learned so much today. And the audience, I'm sure they've learned so much. Where can they find you? Obviously, I will link the website down below, but where can
Yeah.
they find you?
So I do, yeah, I want to mention this. I do a concierge service for people that want to do the stellate with support. So what that means is I pick, and my website is itsyourworldnow.com. But I pick them up at the Fort Lauderdale airport. I drive them to a hotel that's near Dr. Collins that we always use. It's a nice, beautiful pool and everything, really relaxing. And I'm with them during the procedure, like holding their hand, and I'm with them before and after. And I
Wow.
manage everything to help take care of them. And they can bring a friend. A lot of people like to do it with a friend. So when I do concierge services, I only charge one of the people. So if they want to bring a friend, they'll get services as well from me, but I won't charge. So they can often split that charge. So I try to make that doable. So if it's because it's no more extra time for me, so I can really do that. So if people want to come with a friend, and then so I do offer that for people. So it's like
Wow.
they would fly in like on a Monday, and then they would fly out on a Thursday or something like that. So you're going to invest a couple of days. Um, I wouldn't recommend flying on the day of the stellate, though people have and been fine.
Okay, awesome. So what would you say it's like a 4-day trip?
Yeah, I would say that, yes. And some people come for a whole week just to relax and kinda mix it in.
Take
It's
a
like a
break?
yeah,
I love it. That's awesome. That's awesome to know that you can hold their hand and that you have done it yourself, which to me is so valuable because it's like I want to work or be there with someone who has done it so that they are, the in person, testimonial
yes.
of the treatment and you can reassure them of what is happening, why you're feeling this way and help
Yes,
them
and that's it.
process.
Yes. I wish I had a me when I did it, but I had Dr. Collins and he's good, but I really wanted a me. So, uh,
I love it. I love it. So, thank you so much, Rafaela. So, again, your website is
it's yourworldnow.com. It's your
okay.
world now. Yes.
It's your world now, and I will add the link down below. Thank you so much for coming on the
Alright.
show.
It was great being with you today.
Thank you so much.